So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. This week we are back on the headphones game thanks to our friends at Soundpeats, which sent us their new Wings 2 headphones, which are an active set with hooks on them, and you know how I love a secure fit. So let's get into a little bit of specifications and then start talking about these guys. So now we talked about the numbers, let's go into the case and work our way into the earbuds. The case itself is a plastic construction, nothing special. It does have a little silicone tab on top just for ease of carry. In terms of charging, no wireless charging on here for you guys that like to have those pads. $35, not really expecting that feature on here, but it does have a USB-C charger, which will top up this entire device in about an hour and a half. Found that to be pretty accurate. So with the case, the battery will give you about 22 additional hours to the 8 inside the earbud. Both of those figures I found to be pretty accurate, getting really close to those numbers, if not surpassing them depending on how I was using the headphone. But easily can get you your day without actually plugging it in, but I was able to get through most of my work week just through regular use of like music and conferencing and all that sort of stuff, and not having to plug it for a few days, which is great. Didn't have to worry about it. Outside of battery, there's not really much to note except for the indicator light on the front that'll tell you a little bit about how much the charge is. So as we open the case, that's kind of where the first quirk is. These guys do have hooks, so they do have that weird quirk that a lot of companies have of having the earbuds on the opposite sides that they should be. And what I mean with that is that your right earbud is on the left side of the case and your left earbud is on the right side of the case. And I think a lot of companies do this because they need to work around the hooks and wings, and they need to, you know, keep the case cohesive and small and sort of stuff. So it works with the lines. It's just when you put it on and place it off, it's just a little bit annoying because I kind of just want to put this like this, but it won't fit. Not a huge thing, just a quirk that I've noticed with a lot of these winged headphones. In terms of the headphones themselves, they are touch, obviously, have a lot of controls. We'll get more into that as we go into the active part of this review. But the thing to note here is that they have a pretty big driver at 13 millimeters, and it's a very bass-centric sound, which is really good for workout headphones. The one thing that I did notice about here is that they don't really have any like special tips, and there was no coating of rubber on here. This is something that we'll have to check with the field, but I can see how this may slip out with more sweat. While they do have some waterproofing on them, it's just when you sweat a little bit more and move around a little bit more, it may not feel as secure as it does right now when I have dry ears. So that's just something on the fit that I feel like there will be a seal missing here a little bit that I wish that was there. But overall, they're really comfortable. They're pretty inconspicuous in the ears. If I move around, they don't really move around at all, and they're actually really comfortable because they don't bite at all. They're not like feeling like they're expanding my ears. They sit in pretty nicely. I could see how there might be adjustments needed after a while, but overall fit and form factor of these guys are pretty solid. Again, we talked about battery is 8 hours. Easily getting that. I'm not really having anything that is falling super short of that, even with consistent use. But now that you guys have a good understanding of what these have on the baseline, let's go to the field and see how these do in terms of long-term fit, as well as checking the range and all those other things that I do when I'm outside.
All right, so I finished the little field workout. I might as well talk to you guys on the microphones just to tell you guys the quality so you guys can hear it for yourself. But on the field, distance-wise, probably gets like 75, 80 yards comfortably. Maybe like 75 mostly, and then it starts cutting it out around 80. But that's your distance. Pretty good, especially for an earbud of this price range. Obviously, it starts becoming less serviceable around 60, but you can still maintain a connection, so it's still solid. Fit. That's one thing to talk about. It never really slipped out. The hooks did a really good job about that. However, I did feel like they were unseated the entire time, so it felt like they were hanging on the string, but they weren't. They stayed still. I could still hear my music clearly, but just not the most secure fit. That's why I wish they kind of had that rubberized feel to them, just to get more locked in, get a little bit more seal. And that kind of comes to the last part, where it doesn't have dedicated transparency or ANC modes, so you can't lock into your workout if you want to block things out, and you can't hear additional detail if you're talking to someone, or if you want to hear your surroundings. because they're loose, they obviously have ambient like awareness to them. However, and it's still pretty serviceable. Like I was never in danger. I was between volleyball and soccer, and I could hear balls coming my way. Dodge things as necessary, but um, there's no dedicated ANC stuff, or sorry, transparency stuff to help you out with that. And then what else? Oh yeah, I mean obviously you can just do this more if you want more detail or whatever, but it'd be nice to have some microphones in there to help out with that. And then it's the last part of it. I wait for this siren guy to go by. But yeah, I think that's the major stuff. Like overall, I could hear stuff pretty well. I do wish again I could lock it in a little bit better. There was just times where I wish I could get a little bit more detail, especially when stepping heavy, running, doing things where it could distract me a little bit more. I do wish that they had a little bit better seal for better audio quality. But that's the mic and outdoor test. Let's go back indoor and talk a little bit more about some of my observations. All right, so we're home now. Hopefully you guys will get a better understanding how this sounds without all the sirens and outdoor noises. When I was listening back to that sample, obviously it was not the most full microphone I've heard. It doesn't have the depth and clarity that you need. However, it is serviceable and it's pretty commendable for something this price range to give you at least something serviceable outdoors that you can still be heard around. But when we left from the field, I did talk about the controls and how there's no ANC transparency. However, I forgot to mention that there is, however, more space to do other controls like volume, which a lot of true wireless earbuds kind of leave out, which is surprising to me because it's really important, especially for a workout, to just be able to change the volume based on what the track is tuned like. And I'm surprised that a lot more people don't do that. However, they do have this here, which means I never really have to pick up my phone to access most of my controls, or if anything, because there's voice control. So the controls are a little bit quirky because on your left side, that's all your basically your negatives, like your previous track, your volume down, things like that, and all your positives are all on your right side, so volume up, next track, etc. But the controls are a little bit weird. So I think a single tap will get you volume, a double tap will pause it, and then a triple tap will do the voice assistant, and a hold will do next or previous track, depending on what side you're using. So very quirky in terms of the controls, but it's a learning curve, but not too bad. Again, I just love the fact that you can use it without picking up your phone and made the workout go really, really well. So now we've talked about controls, mic samples, and all that. Let's talk about how this actually sounds from a music perspective.
Before we talk about music, we definitely have to talk about the application because it will eventually lead into that. However, it is 1.8 stars. It's not well received on the Play Store, and I think a lot of that is just contributed to the fact that it is a little bit slow to start up sometimes and connect, as well as there's not a lot to do outside of EQ. So, you can see your battery levels, and you can get linked out to external links, but there's no instruction manual or control sort of layout there that you can see. It's super minimal. There's not a lot. Actually, when you get to the first screen, you're kind of confused. You're like, what can I do here? But there is a thing to note outside of music, which I think that is important, which is game mode. Game mode will be good for you to toggle if you want a little bit more dynamic sound and more impactful booms and basses in terms of explosions. Those will be really good for your games and your movie watching. Just want a little bit more oomph there. You feel a little bit more power behind those sound effects. Game mode is really good for you. I don't generally use it a lot because I don't like toggling between settings a lot, especially if I'm going between games and music and watching YouTube. Just like to keep it pretty simple, but every now and then it's nice to turn that on, especially if I know I'm going to go through a long gaming session on my phone. But the big thing that they spent most of their effort in is actually EQ, and that's something that we need to talk about. Out of the box, I will say that it's extremely bass-heavy tone, and it tends to overpower vocalists a lot. I noticed that through a lot of my J-rock, some of my pop songs, even something as simple as even reggaeton, just people don't sound as good as they would normally. And I think that's kind of what got me deterred initially from listening through. And this is before I even opened the app. I was just listening through for hours, just trying to get a sense of the sound signature. But that bass heaviness does tend to distort voices, take some power away from them, and that's something I just don't appreciate. So initially I was gonna write this off. But then I played with the app a little bit more, and they have a couple options for you. You can tune your own. I found ways to play with the sliders and get a little bit more vocal focused sound and recess the bass a bit just to get something a little bit more balanced that would work. And it worked out really, really well. And it's pretty easy to do if you are acclimated to adjusting a sound using those sliders. However, not a lot of people are, so they do have an adaptive EQ. And this is something that actually surprised me from Soundpeats, is because a lot of companies try to do this and it really doesn't do all that much, and I don't end up liking the resulting sound. However, they do a really, really good job. I was super impressed by this. So essentially they just go through the basic, tell me if you hear this sound. You go through a minute or two of a bunch of different frequencies, and it'll try to tune based on what you can hear optimally and what you may be deficient in, just to make sure that it's really making the music sound best to you. And it does a really good job. So I'll go through some of my notes when listening and tell you how that adaptive felt. Obviously you can tune this however you want with the custom EQ, but I think a lot of people will be using this adaptive EQ. So the first song that I put this through was Snake Eyes by Aries. This is an emo pop sort of sound, and the guy's voice works really well for the music that he's making. So it has a lot of guitar hits in it, and on the standard one, it tended to overpower his vocals, distorted it a bit, just didn't sound that great. But when you activated the adaptive, it was so much more balanced, and his vocals just had way more staying power, and it just worked better for the vibe of the song by recessing out that bass. And that's something that was similar to what I had tuned before, but the adaptive figured it out for me. The next song that I kind of put it through was Am I Dreaming, new song from the new Spider-Verse movie. The intro is actually really, really good with the standard tuning, but once it started bringing those complexities of the other instrumentation, that's when the vocals started washing out, and I didn't really like it. Again, with the adaptive, you got, it was not as fun to start, but once everything was in there, it sounded really, really good. So, give and take on that one. And then anything with J-Rock, essentially vocals sounded empty. Yosobi, who has a great voice and kind of fun vocals, just sounded super empty, and adding adaptive just made her 10 times more present in that song. Otherwise it was just super tinny. I didn't really like it, but the adaptive fixed that through. So this song with Grupo Frontera and Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny has a unique way of singing, and it usually has some staying power behind him. For some reason, when he was extending vocals, it was super harsh, and I had no idea why that was. And it was just really grating. It was just not very fun. So, but the adaptive really brought that to a lot more pleasant rendition, and really, while it recessed some of that staying power from his vocals and the yeah, the stuff that really sticks there for a long time, it brought that down a little bit, but it just made the whole song a lot more pleasant. But as much as I've talked about the standard tuning not really meeting par, what I will tell you is that as you start taking away instrumentation and making it more a cappella, or just very simple piano, very simple one instrument with vocals, it starts getting a lot better. So the thing that I'll say with Lawrence, right? Very good group out of New York, I believe. And the standard tuning for Weather was just haunting. It was super nice. It fit the mood of the song. And because there's just very little instrumentation and it's just mostly focused on their vocals, it was beautiful. And then when you started adding the adaptive, it was more balanced for sure, but it was just less impressive. I was not wowed by it. So actually the standard won in that. And then if you take out the entire thing, let's take out all vocals, boom, dude, that thing is woof. That thing is it's so good. So surprised. $35, you'll get some clarity and out of that. It's so Rodrigo y Gabriela has a song of Metavolution. Super fun to hear that all that guitar and all that sort of happening. It is more complex, but it's just because the vocals aren't there to sort of distract it, it's just so freaking powerful, and I love how that sounded. And then when you added the adaptive, it was just what is this song? It's missing everything that the standard tuning had. So I think this is really good for instrumentation, instrumentals, acapellas, and things like that. But that's just my take on all that. I will give you guys some samples showing you both the standard and adaptive. I won't show you my custom tuning. I think that's a waste of time because I think most people will be using adaptive, but just to show you a little bit of the difference. Obviously, this is going to be copyright free music with like limited vocals, so bear with me, but hopefully this gives you guys a good sense of what this headphone sounds like. In terms of a recommendation, it's so close, but it's like I got to give this like an incomplete because while there's so much I love about it, there's a couple different things I think are holding it back from being an easy recommendation. In terms of the sound, I love it. It punches higher than a $35 headphone should. In terms of mics, super serviceable, definitely clear enough for you to take walks and be heard on conference calls. In terms of battery, half a week easy. Never have to worry about charging this throughout the day. 30 hours. This is, says its own. And then controls, obviously, super responsive, super reliable. Even when I got stuck in a downpour, everything still worked. That's rare. That's awesome. So definitely a lot going for it. However, the two things I think that would be, consideration points for people are going to be the lack of transparency in ANC mode. Even with that front, I don't think I need ANC for a workout headphone. I like having spatial awareness as long as it gives me enough of a seal to lock into my music, which I think these ones did. But having the transparency mode to give me a little bit more spatial awareness would be ideal because I know people like using this for biking or like when there's a lot of stuff going on, just having that would be essential for a workout pair of headphones. But the funny thing is that Soundpeats actually made an amazing attempt at transparency mode because I was reading about their True Wings, which had transparency mode, and apparently it was lauded for how accurate it sounded, how realistic it sounded, how much spatial awareness it gave people. It was like really good. I don't know why they didn't add it for these ones, but hopefully they can do that through maybe a firmware update or even like a future version of these. But I think that's one thing that, people may want. And then the other thing is that the fit. I think if you are trying these out, fit is the biggest thing you need to do. I think you'll be happy with the sound and battery and all that other stuff, but like fit is what you'll really need to see. And again, that's ear to ear. That maybe it's just not ideal for my ear, but did they ever fall out? No. Did they feel uncomfortable? No. Did I need to adjust them? Probably not. But did I adjust them? Like literally all the time, because when I was running and getting more sweaty, it just felt like it was hanging out. But was it? No. So it's just this weird sensation because I think that smooth plastic just didn't give me that seal that I wanted. And I think adding like a silicone cover to that pod portion may give me a better seal for my music, but also just a little bit more security and grip when things get a little bit more moist, so we say. So those are the two things I think. Again, if you want to pick these up, definitely try them out. I think these are a wonderful workout headphone. The fit is just the thing that you need to try. If you want to try them, definitely got the link down in the description for you guys to check out. But I think you guys would be super happy with these, especially if you want to use them for an active setting. But yeah, that was the video. I thank you guys so much for sticking around and staying to the end if you did. But if you could, please like, subscribe, comment, do all the things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And to my OGs, thank you so much for tuning into the rare lives, the shorts, and all of the videos that I do, despite what the, topic is. I know a lot of you guys like tech, but because of your continued support, I get to partner with these great companies that give me awesome things to look at. So hopefully you guys still like the content and stay around. But as always, appreciate ya. Peace.